So these are the new Distress Oxides, and what's cool about oxides, this is a dye and pigment ink fusion. You think, wow, that sounds really cool and sophisticated, because they are. Now, the nice thing about having a dye and a pigment is that we're going to have the versatility of the wicking nature of Distress ink and having that color kind of go everywhere, but we're also going to have the opacity of a pigment, which means we can layer colors unlike we've ever been able to do before. Now, Distress Oxides are only 12 colors right now. These all match the current Distress line, so you'll have some of the favorites, Broken China, Cracked Pistachio, Worn Lipstick. Now, these are in a case. It is a silver plastic, so easily identifiable from the black plastic case of your regular Distress ink.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. But because it is a dye pigment fusion, the surface of this is actually a felt pad. Usually when we think of pigment ink, we think of that squishy foam that's glycerin-based, sticky, kind of goopy when we stamp with it. This is a felt pad, so we have a solid surface, but it has pigment in it, and you can see it's very wet, which means this ink will allow me to stamp, blend, watercolor, stencil, emboss. Anything that you do with the Distress ink, you can do with an oxide. But the difference is going to be the effect that it gives, and that's what I think is so interesting about working with an ink like this and having kind of that combination of dye and pigment. Now, when we use it, it can work on a variety of surfaces. We can use it on light colored cardstock, we can use it on black cardstock, we can use it on craft cardstock. You can use it on any surface because now we're taking the opacity of that pigment and we're really utilizing it on multi-surfaces. Now, using it by itself, because it's dye and pigment, it stamps with impeccable detail. Usually with a pigment ink, it's going to be kind of very goopy. It's going to fill in a lot of those small details. This stamps very clean, even your lines, and it will stamp again on light or dark. This is where it starts to get interesting because oxides, what make them unique is that, of course, they are reactive with water. In the world of Distress, water is our magic wand, right? We spray it with water and cool things happen. So if I stamp with the oxide, it's a great pigment ink. I can stamp with Cracked Pistachio, it's dry, it doesn't take a heat tool, it dries fairly quickly, and you can be happy with the color. But if you take that same ink and you mist it with water, it will oxidize. And it just oxidizes with water,
So
which
the
means...
water's the right?
Yes, which means that dye and pigment separate, and that's what's coming to the top, and that's what's giving it that oxidized effect.
Like embossed without all the work.
Right, it's almost like just illuminated because it's really separating the two, which means
Reminds me of like colored pencils.
it's cool. Yeah, the opacity of kind of putting in that colored pencil on craft, and that's really the inspiration with Distress Oxide, is having that play of an opaque pigment. Now, when we work with these, stamping with them is great, but this is just going to show you about adding water. If I add tons of water to this, this is where you're going to separate the two layers. This is where the dye and pigment separate, and you'll see that your dye really soaks out, but our pigment remains stable. So if you were doing this with Distress ink and you just hose this down, your entire image would just wash away. But because we have a dye and a pigment, adding a lot of water is going to allow our dye to kind of spread out, but our image, the pigment, is going to remain very stable. Now, seeing this as a background, this is pretty cool because these are exactly the same color palettes. This is Distress ink, this is Distress Oxide. So Distress ink, for example, here I use blue, yellow, and brown. Because it is a dye, when those start to layer, yellow and blue make green. So you see a lot of green in this tag. But these, because they are pigment, you see a lot more blue because that blue has the ability to layer on top. And that's what makes this a game changer. We can create these intense backgrounds, colorful backgrounds, and we can see these colors because they are not only going to layer, but they're going to create this really cool kind of milky film that almost looks like chalk. It looks like it should rub off. It's very suede-y, you can feel it, like feel-o-vision, but it's completely smooth.
So it when you stamp it, how long does it take to dry, or do you heat set it?
When you stamp it, it would take probably less than a minute to dry.
Okay, so
Yeah, because it has no glycerin, like a pigment ink.
Okay.
No glycerin at all, which is pretty cool. Now, stamping on top of it, I can stamp it as well. I'll do a quick background and then I'll show you some stamping. So when I do a background, I'm just going to take some of the colors and I'll just swipe it onto the craft sheet. I'll save pink for later, and I will use pink just for you. I'm going to go in. Jennifer's like, more
some brown
colors.
in.
Yeah, more colors. I know, I should throw some brown in, right? I'm playing nice.
Shirt is perfect.
All right.
I know,
There
right?
we go.
He plans it that way.
I do. All right, just gonna add some color. Then I'm gonna go in, spray this with water. Okay, I just wanna get that going. Then I'm gonna take, this is mixed media heavy stock. This is a very stable paper. It's designed for wet and dry techniques. So unlike Manila Tag that will curl up right away, heavy stock is designed to stay flat and stay stable. It's great for watercolor, it's great for backgrounds. Now for this, I do my first layer and you get what you get. Because in the world of ink, wet on wet blend color, wet on dry layer color. Okay, so if I just kept going wet on wet, everything would blend together into a muddy mess. But by drying it just for a little bit, I can go in, add another layer, and that's going to start building my color. And you'll see that as this dries, it starts to go on very wet, but as it dries, you're going to see it kind of haze over into that oxidized look. And that looks really cool. It's really cool. Yeah, as you see that ink start to dry, it just kind of starts to get a very soft, hazy look. And you can use the oxides just by themselves, or you can combine them. Here we've taken oxide. This is oxide and distress ink, and this is the same palette in just oxide. Okay, so you can identify right away that picked raspberry, citrus preserves, wild honey, those were my inks, right? My distress inks. And then we've got broken china, cracked pistachio, those are the oxides. So even using these in combination, really cool. Because sometimes maybe you don't want everything soft. Maybe you want something that's a little bit more vivid and vibrant. And it's really cool that even though we have a new toy, we don't have to forget what's in the toy box, right? Because that's the fun stuff. We're like, okay, well I have oxides, what about the rest? You can still use them.
Okay.
So here I'm just going to add some water, and we can even remove color. Remember, it's distress, so just adding water, you still have the ability to remove it.
Does it stay wet long enough to heat emboss?
Absolutely.
But distress ink does too.
Yes, it actually stays wet longer than distress ink because it's got a little bit of that pigment in it. So now I'm going to take a little bit of worn lipstick. I'll throw in a little bit of spiced marmalade, and I'm going to wet these two. Now we're going to throw some pink on there. Throw some pink, and we'll throw a little bit of orange. And what's interesting about this is you would think that pink and orange over a purple and blue background would certainly be brown.
Gross.
But not with oxide. So here you're going to see that nice worn lipstick just create that really soft pink layer. The marmalade just dries with that really nice orange layer over the back. We can even break through those. And it just creates a very cool background. Pretty awesome.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Now blending's awesome because we can take our blending tool, we can take any foam. I have it. I have none. Oh my gosh, it's blending.
Oh, right here, Tim.
Oh, thank you very much. Blending, so cool, so smooth. Let's say we want to blend with what? Broken china, cracked pistachio. You can blend with any color now. Because we're dealing with a pigment, any color that we blend with is going to show up. So now we can add that. And if we wanted to blend, let's say with brown, we can blend with brown. Now something to keep in mind is, let's say you had a color on your craft sheet. You know, we do a lot of direct to surface. And let's say we take an ink pad and we accidentally go through and we get color on an ink pad. That would freak her out right away. She's gonna
It
panic.
wouldn't freak me out
Yeah.
as long as it's not on her hands.
It
You
freaked
can just
Jennifer
wipe it
out.
right off. Yeah, yeah, Jennifer, just wipe it right off. Is that it? It's that easy. Just wipe it off. So here I can take.
This is where he's
a little
freaking
bit
me
of
out.
color.
The brown? That
just a
ink
little
blending
bit.
tool is designated to crack pistachio.
I know it is,
And
but,
you just messed
but,
up the whole world.
but Jen only gave me one blending foam, so I'm making it work. No, that's all right. So here I'm just going to go in and just kind of break that color up. And just blend that. And it's so cool to see that cracked pistachio just around the edges. It's really cool. It's so good. Yeah. And if this was distress ink, all those colors and layers would have been in the can long ago. Yeah, it would have been like, this didn't
Need
work.
some gold splatter.
But this is really cool.
Yeah.
So let's
Some
stamp
guilt
on this
paint.
real quick. I'll stamp on the background and just show you how we can go in and add a layer. Because stamping on top of it's really key. Because anytime you have something that has kind of that chalky finish, people think, oh, it's a chalk ink, it's not going to stamp very well. Remember, it's not a chalk ink, it's an oxide. So stamping on it's pretty cool. I'm going to take the stamp platform and we're going to stamp it. So here I'm just going to place this down. Fully magnetic surface, 8.5 by 8.5. It's got an embedded acrylic grid. Pretty simple when we work with it, so we can stamp on a variety of surfaces. If I'm going to work with a rubber stamp, it's going to say rubber. If I'm going to work with a clear stamp, it's going to say clear. So I'm working with a rubber stamp. So I lock it into the channel. Once you do that, it's not going to come off. We're going to open this up, and let's take a couple of butterflies. Butterflies are always nice, we'll put those on there. Let's position that, and we're just going to go ahead and close this and transfer it. Now when I'm stamping with this, I'm going to stamp with some layers. So here I'm just going to add just a swipe of ink to these first, and I'll go ahead and stamp these out. Now, the cool thing about this surface, because it's acrylic, you can stamp with pressure, you can CPR. It's all the way built up around the edges, so it's not going to cave in. Some people are CPR stampers. That's okay. It's all right.
I am. I take
And we're
all my
gonna add
aggression out.
all your aggression when you're stamping. Now we're going to add another soft layer, and we're going to stamp that, and we're going to start building this up. So here I'm going to ink a little bit more into the center, and I'm going to stamp it again. And then I'm going to go in a little bit more into the center of each of these, and we're going to stamp it again. So instead of inking up the entire stamp each time, I'm really moving from the outer edge directly to the inside, because what that will do, at least for this particular background, is it's going to make my image kind of fade into the background. So instead of just stamping the same thing, the edge of the wings just kind of fade into that oxidized background. I think it's kind of a cool way to stamp, and that to me is pretty awesome.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, pretty neat. And this easy cleanup doesn't have anything etched in there. Again, it's embedded, and if you were going to go to clear, you would just pick this up, flip it over, lock it in.
How many
and off you
oxides
go.
are there? Was 12?
12. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting kind
Thank
of
you for
working
all
in
the
the palette.
colors.
I know. It was very hard to choose those colors, to be honest, because I literally put my markers in a pile and chose at random. I'm like, this is our pink. One lipstick. Did I want pink raspberry? I did, but did I get it? I did not, so I kept moving. But knowing that I would have loved
Peacock feathers, I
yeah,
know.
Seriously, I was happy I got ice spruce. I'm not gonna lie, that was all.
At least there's cracked pistachio.
Could have been, yeah.
Makes
But
up for it.
well, ironic, out of 12 colors, only 3 of the new colors kind of made the cut, because I really wouldn't cheat. Because at some point, it's endless possibilities. Where do you pick 12? Yeah. How do you pick 12 out of 60? You just have to kind of go for it and be like, that's good. But I wanted candied apple as my red. Yes, but fired brick is cool just the same. Because what's interesting about these oxides is how they really separate and react with water. Totally different than if you're just using a straight dye, because you get a lot more depth because you're playing with the dye and pigment.
When are they in
So
stores?
it's pretty awesome. They actually ship next month. Yeah, they'll be shipping mid-February, which is really great. And re-inkers come with them as well, so you'll be able to use the re-inkers. They work on canvas, they work on wood, anything porous. So watercoloring with them, if you watercolor like with a water brush, I don't watercolor the way some people do around here, but if I did, you can take this and either go direct from the pad to watercolor, or you can go from your craft sheet or from the re-inker, and you can pick this up. And not only can you watercolor onto a surface, you can watercolor this over a watercolor and get just like that little hazy effect over an existing color. Because remember, we're dealing with a dye and pigment. It's not like paint. We're still going to have that somewhat translucency of a dye, but when it dries, you kind of get that opacity of the pigment. Pretty crazy. Even something that
Thank
thin.
you for creating something new and exciting.
It was exciting. This was 3 years in the making, so to actually see it come to market after 3 years is like,
It's exciting.
it's
That's
good.
called patience.
It was,
Yeah.
but I knew exactly what I wanted. I'm like, I wanted this and I wanted this, but I want it delivered like this because I don't want to compromise on a foam, and I still want the properties of the reaction, but I need the pigment to be stable. And I mean, there were so many variables, and we just kept going at it, and the results, like, it's just something we've not seen before. So to me,
Yes.
it's exciting. Yeah.
There's a lot of the same with inks these days.
I'm sure minis are in the pipeline at some point, right?
Actually, no. I'm trying to resist minis simply because of the dye pigment mix. Because it's such an intense formulation.
Kinda need that
you
bigger
the
surface.
You need that
You
surface
keep all
to
your
keep
ink
that.
storage that you used for your big pads before.
Yeah.
It's ready.
Here
Yeah.
we go.
Because it is important. Like even Rachel said, do you want minis? I'm like, you know what? Because you need that mixture of dye and pigment, you need that surface to make sure that you are applying that proper amount.
In my mind, I'm trying to pick out which 12 I'm going to sacrifice so I can put these in their place.
Yeah. They're,
Storage.
yeah.
browns.
They're really ridiculous.
The browns.
They're really ridiculously cool. I know, see? She's so quick to cast
So
them.
harsh. You can't get rid of vintage
I
photo.
love this silver.
Oh
I
no,
know,
vintage
that's a
photos,
staple.
gathered twigs.
Gathered twigs, vintage
Even in going into black.
antique linen.
Can't take those out.
For all those patches,
Yeah, no,
you really
yeah.
need some
I was
vintage photo.
joking.
We have the browns
She loves
If you
brown.
keep a brown